Enshrouded's latest update includes prop rotation, which adds a whole new world of possibilities for building. So today, I'm going to show you 10 fun things you can do with this feature. Some will be more obvious than others, but hopefully you'll come away with at least a few new ideas. Let's get started. So tip number 1 is going to be using windows for curved roofs or skylights. So for this example, I'm using the rustic window frames, which go quite well with the conifer wood there. Now, you have a lot of freedom with this one. I'm going to be using increments of 6 for the example because I don't have a lot of space to work with here, and otherwise it would take a long time. But you could even use increments of 1 if you wanted to and just create a massive curved roof. Now, I found that snapping is a little bit awkward here. It doesn't quite work as well as I would like, so I'm placing them manually, which is a little bit more tedious and time consuming, but you'll get there in the end, and with enough time and dedication, you can get it looking pretty perfect. So you can see, even with a small roof like this, it still creates a really nice curved effect, and there's a bunch of different windows that you can mess around with, so a cool little feature. Tip number 2 is custom walkways and flooring. You can see I've laid out some well blocks and obsidian blocks here, and you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to grab these Crypt cabinets, and with the new rotation feature we can now just like push these down into the ground. So if we keep going all the way as far as we can, you can see they're going to end up just above where that well block is. And that's going to be perfect for creating these custom walkways. So we can then rotate this one around and place it on the other side, so we've got a bit of symmetry. Now I like these ones because they have the big skulls on them. So with the skulls like just above ground level, I think that's going to create a really nice effect. Now obviously for this example, I'm just using a few of them. I don't have a lot of space to work with, but say you grabbed a couple dozen of these, you could make a really nice long custom walkway into like a castle or a crypt or something like that. And then at the end of the walkway here, I've got these small crypt cabinets, which I'm going to use to create a little staircase. Now, snapping is going to be a godsend for this, and we're just going to drop them down a little bit more each time. And you can see they match the walkway really well. And then we're just going to play around with adding a little green luminescent trim around the walkway, which could look quite cool. Kind of matches the little crystals and the eyes on the skulls. And then for the second example, so we've got the obsidian blocks here, we're going to take one of these magnificent boreal wood tables. Now, snapping isn't always going to work, unfortunately, so I am placing this one manually. But all we have to do is just lift it up a little bit, and then we want it just higher than the obsidian blocks. Now, I do wish that there was a set in the game that sort of matched this boreal table, but we can't have everything. So I'm going to use some of these sinks for the staircase here. So we're going to turn those upside down, and then it's the same thing. You just kind of bring them up to where you want them and create a little staircase going down. So again, there's lots of things you could play around with here, a bunch of different tables and cabinets that you could place into the ground. I think it's going to make for some really fun combinations. Tip number 3 is going to be a fun one, and a very simple one to do as well, and it's pumpkin heads. So we've got a little gnome here, and we've got a scarecrow, and, well, pretty self-explanatory. All we're going to do is take a couple of these pumpkins and replace their heads. So when we initially try to place these, it's going to treat the scarecrow and the gnome as a wall, essentially. And to begin with, it won't let you place the thing because it's on a wall, but if you just tap the right stick or whatever button it is to rotate on keyboard and mouse, then for some reason it allows you to place it. So you don't actually have to rotate it, but yeah, there are ways around it, so you can pretty much do anything you want. So we're just going to push these pumpkins back into the head of the gnome there, and it's going to take a little bit of fine tuning, but it shouldn't be too difficult. Good thing is too, we have a bunch of different pumpkins of different sizes, so you can find the perfect size for you depending on what it is you're trying to put a pumpkin on. You could even take the big stone, what's it called, Queen Pikemead statue, put a pumpkin on that, why not? So there's the gnome with the pumpkin. Now it's time for the scarecrow, and we're just going to try and sit that just below his hat there. And that looks pretty perfect, I think. I like it. I like it. Yeah, pretty simple one, but I haven't seen anyone do this yet, and I think it's quite a fun thing to do. So yeah, play around with it for yourself. Tip number 4, similar to the custom walkways, is going to be custom tables. So essentially what I'm going to do here is take a few things such as light sources and cabinets and just flip them on their head. We're just going to turn them upside down and then make sure they're nice and, you know, straight and vertical, and then just push them down into the ground. So we've got this palm wood cupboard here, and the thing I like about this is that if you flip it upside down, it kind of has like these 2 tiers. So you could put some fun things in there. I'm going to grab this picture and just stick that down there at the back, and then maybe get a little candlestick, bring that out to the front, and there you go. So, you know, stuff like this could be cool if you have like a palm wood theme going on. We're obviously somewhat limited to how much furniture we actually have in these different sets, so it's almost like creating new pieces of furniture for the set. So next we have the steel standing lamp. Now this one's really cool, so we're going to do the same thing here. Just turn it upside down, then bring it up out of the ground. And again, snapping is going to be really good for this one. If we then grab this crystal pitcher here, you can see that the shape of it just perfectly aligns with this steel lamp, which is really cool. And then I'm going to push it down just ever so slightly, and it looks like it's actually meant for the jug. It looks like it's holding it. I like it, and it's really cool. And then the final example. Now this one I think is my personal favorite. I just really like the way it looks. It looks genuinely like a table. It's really cool. So we've got this lantern here, the iron lantern. Upside down it goes. Bring it up as much as we can, and it's a custom iron table, which to be fair would also go quite well with the palm wood furniture. So let's stick something on it there. I'm going to grab a coaster, again snapping on, pop that right in the middle, and then let's put a Shroud survival flask on there. Look at that. And cool little custom tables. Tip number 5 is going to be stacking statues. So we've got a few of the old Black Mire statues here. So I'm going to take a couple to begin with and just ever so slightly push them down into the ground. Then we're going to grab our rustic door and pop that in the center. Again, snapping, a little bit awkward for this one. Just a little bit behind them. There we go. So, you know, nothing revolutionary about that. We can kind of do that already, right? But now we have a lot more freedom with the shapes and things that we can create. So if we just come up here a little bit, and then we're going to grab these 2 smaller statues. And now that we have the freedom to rotate them, we can turn them this way about 90 degrees, or exactly 90 degrees actually, and essentially make like a full sort of frame around the door. So I'm going to pop that guy down. Then grab another one, just turn it the other way. Make sure they're nice and lined up, which they should be, because snapping is on. And there they are. So now we've got a little Black Mire door frame, as opposed to just the 2 statues either side of it. And then, you know, you could expand on this if you wanted to. I've got a couple more here, so let's see what we can do with these. So if we sort of just rotate them about 45 degrees, push them down into the ground a bit. And I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I think you get the idea. There's a lot of freedom now. There's a lot of things that we can try with these. We obviously have, what, 8 or 10 different Black Mire statues in the game. So you could create some cool, unique combinations. So I'm going to just have these 2 kind of leaning up against the door. And yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And I mean, again, similar to the curved roofs with the windows, you could create like massive arches if you wanted to. You could take a couple dozen of these and just create a huge arch, maybe leading into the Black Mire. That could look really cool. Or if you wanted to build like a temple or something, let's pop a couple little skull candles up here. Why not? Why not? And another one on this side. Boom. Obviously, you could play around with the VUCA stone block too. That could be cool. There's a lot of things you could do here, but yeah, I just thought I'd showcase some of these new statue combinations. Tip number 6 is going to be potion piles. So again, pretty self-explanatory. We can use snapping here to begin with for the first 4. And then it's going to be a little bit more tricky and we're going to have to go into it manually. So we'll stick one in the middle and then have 4 more on the outside. So it kind of creates this diamond shape. Then we can start filling those in with potions. Now, obviously you could do this with food and all sorts if you wanted to. I'm just using potions because I think that'd be a cool aesthetic. And with the big potions here, the superior ones, the health and mana potions, they're so big that you can't even really see the coasters underneath. And I really like that aesthetic. So you could do a pile of potions purely with those if you wanted to. But I think we're going to add a little bit of variation. So we've got that base layer done. So then we're going to need to start to move up. So if you just bring the coasters up about 5 spaces, that should do it. And then we're going to go around with 4 of these and just sort of fill in the gaps there. And let's get some Shroud survival flasks. Maybe a wisp of light or something like that. And then finally, we're going to have the centerpiece on the top. Now again, can be a little bit tricky to line it up properly, but if you can just sort of walk over them and look directly down and it should be simple enough to do. And we're going to stick some ectoplasm soup on there because it looks fantastic. And there you have yourself a little potion pile. Tip number 7, one of my personal favorites, and I'm calling it the Crypt tip. So we have these weathered stone blocks and pillars here, which are going to be perfect for this tip. Now, I've taken a bunch of different coffins and coffin lids for this, and I'm going to show you how you can basically just merge these into the blocks, so it almost creates a whole new looking block. So if we take this coffin here, place it against the wall and then just push it pretty much all the way back. I mean, you can have it coming out as much as you want to, but for this example, I'm basically just going to have the little skulls kind of poking out, and it almost looks like a part of the block, and I think it's a really cool aesthetic. And then another cool thing you can do here is take the coffin lids, rotate them 90 degrees so that they are vertical, and then push those back into these pillars. Now they fit perfectly as well. They are the perfect width for this, so that's going to be great. And there you go. You can see the color and the texture of them just matches the weathered stone amazingly well. And then finally, we'll grab these coffins again and just attempt to push them into the bottom of these pillars. And there you go. It has that nice yellow kind of aesthetic to match the first coffin that we placed. But yeah, I just think this one looks fantastic. Like it's quite a minor thing, obviously, but for people who are making crypts and things like that, I think it's a really cool thing to play around with. Tip number 8, following along from the crypt tip, we have improved bone blocks. Now, some of you may have seen, months and months ago, not long after the game launched, we released a video which was called Better Bone Blocks, where we showed some tips on how you can improve them. But now, with prop rotation, we can essentially take all of these skull candles and place them all over the wall. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any just regular skull props in the game yet, which that would be nice if they'd add that at some point, but you can still make this work. Now, obviously, we don't want the candle to be showing here, but if we just take one of these skulls and rotate it back a little bit, and then maybe push it back into the wall slightly, pop it down, and there you go. It looks pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool. I'm going to quickly go around and just place a load of these skulls in randomly. Rotate each one slightly as I go, add a bit of variation, and we can even place some in the floor too. And it should create a really nice aesthetic when we're done. So there you are. I mean, I don't know how often you guys use the bone blocks, but if you are a fan of it, you can now do this. And, you know, from a distance, you can't even really tell much of a difference. But when you get closer to it, it just adds all this new texture. And it's something that you can't do with any other block. I think it works really well. I'm definitely going to be playing around with this one. So if you guys have any spooky build projects in the works, then hopefully these last 2 tips will help you out with that. Tip number 9, the simplest one yet, and yet the most widely used, I would imagine. Corner couches. Very, very simple and obvious, but again, it could be something that a lot of people haven't thought to do. So we're literally going to pop down a couch, then grab another one. Now you can use snapping for this, but I actually find that turning snapping off, you can kind of fine tune it a little bit better and get it a bit more precise. But yeah, there you go. That's all you got to do. You got yourself a corner couch. And then we can pop down a little table there and just sort of squeeze in, have a sit down, and there you are. Perfect. And tip number 10, the final tip is going to be the tanning rack. So for this, I'm using a fur rug and these prison fences. Now, I would prefer to use wood for this, but I don't think there's really any wood items in the game that are quite as slim as the prison fence. So I'm going to be using these, and I think it still works pretty well. So we are going to use snapping here for these. So if we take one and just tilt it 4 times, pop it down, and grab another one, turn that the opposite way. Then we'll do the other side, just move it a few spaces out. That should do it, I think. Pop those 2 down as well. And there we are. Now we can get the rug and just turn that on its side. Make sure it's all lined up properly. And then try to get that in the center. I don't think snapping will work for the rug itself, but that should be okay. Then bring it up as high as it will go and pop that down. Then we can take a bit more of the fencing, just have that one going horizontally along the top there. Oh, it's looking good. And then we can turn on snapping for these 2. We're just going to place a couple horizontally along the floor here as well. And there is the tanning rack. I think this one has to be my favorite overall. I haven't seen anyone do this yet. You know, we don't really have anything like this in the game. We have the tanning station, but nothing resembling a tanning rack. So it's a cool little trick, and it could be a nice little addition to your hunter's cabin. And there you are, guys, 10 tips for prop rotation. Now, as I mentioned at the start, I imagine a lot of you guys have been playing around with this feature a lot, so you may already know quite a few of these, but I would imagine there's at least going to be 1 or 2 things you can take from the video. I hope so anyway. Now, if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, I'm sure I can come up with a lot more ideas. And if you have anything that you've discovered that you'd like us to showcase on the channel, then feel free to drop a comment or a suggestion. And if we make a part 2 to this, we'll be sure to shout you out. So thank you for watching, guys. Consider subscribing to the channel for more Enshrouded tips and tricks. And join our Discord if you want to meet more people who love Enshrouded. And until next time, I've been Ben, and you've been watching Pratfall.